Okay, so we are going to start with talking about what is happening in symphony. And in symphony, right now, or actually currently we're already in the new system, but last week in symphony up until now, we have considered books by mail a physical bricks and mortar location. That's the way Symphony has looked at it. So when a patron or a staff person was placing a request and selected a pickup library of B-mail or books by mail, in Symphony's mind, that was a bricks and mortar physical library location, no different than the Haines City Public Library, the Eagle Lake Public Library. It was a physical library location. We did that on purpose because when we first created our Books by Mail program with our central office, we did not have an automation system that could handle mailing items internally. We were using a Horizon automation system. It did not have any capabilities for mailing items within the software. So we had to create our own system, which is exactly what we did. But now that we are using the Symphony automation system, and particularly the version that we are on now, it has a very robust mailing library component. And so that is the change that we are making. We are moving from treating books by mail as a physical library pickup location that we had to manipulate to mail something to over to a mail service policy invoking the setup that's already in place in Symphony for mailing items to users. So what will that look like if you're a patron? If you are a patron, it will look like the same thing you have always seen except in a different position. So currently, if you well, actually, again, made these changes yesterday. Last week, if you were a patron and you were in Enterprise or you were on our mobile app and you wanted to pick up your item through the Books by Mail, have it mailed to you, you would have picked the drop down library, the pickup library, and it would have defaulted at the top of your list would have been books by mail. Because this is a list of libraries, I can sort them into whatever order I want to. And so I had purposely sorted books by mail at the very top. And then by default, whatever enterprise profile or mobile app your patron was signed into, your library would be the next one on the list. So let's say they were signed in as a Haines City library user, then the top one would have been Books by Mail, and the one underneath that would have been the Haines City Public Library and the Haines City Lockers, and then it would have gone down in alphabetical order through the other member libraries. Moving forward, in both Enterprise and the mobile app, we are now invoking the policy. And I made all these changes yesterday. So today, any patron who has selected Books by Mail has done it with this new method. And that is that it is now a policy, and the policies always appear at the end of the library list. There's no way to sort those or move them up. Um, that is their position, and it's hard coded. So now, Books by Mail reads the exact same way, looks the exact same way, except it's the end of the list instead of the beginning of the list. So you may have patrons call you or come into the library and say, "Where did Books by Mail go? It's always been at the very top." And what you need to tell them is, "It's still there. Just scroll down to the very bottom and you will see it." What about for staff? So, in the past, if you were going to place a hold for a user who wanted the item mailed to them, you would have gone to place hold and you would have selected from the drop-down menu, pick up at Bmail or West Bmail. When you opened that place hold wizard, the window would have defaulted to your library as the pickup location. We have Symphony set up to do that. But you would have opened up the drop down menu and you would have selected B-mail. Moving forward, you're no longer using the bricks and mortar library B-mail location. Instead, you're invoking the policy. To do that, you have to have first put in the user and the item. It has to have identified the user and the item. When you open your placehold window from the placehold wizard, until you have filled those two items in, you will not see mail item to user with a checkbox because Symphony has to verify that the user and the item are both qualified to be mailed before it puts that checkbox in. So after you have filled in the user ID and the item ID, then that mail item to user comes up. And all you have to do at that point is put a check mark in that box. You will notice once that is done, the pickup at library gets grayed out. Now there's still a value in there. It was the default value that came up when the window was opened, but the system is no longer looking at that. It is now has invoked the mail item to user policy, and it shows up that then chooses the delivery method, which is also defaulted in there of USPS 14 day. We only have one mail service policy delivery method to choose from now. So it should pre-populate for you, but in the off chance that it doesn't, all you have to do is open that drop-down menu, pick the only one that's there, which is USPS 14 day, and then go ahead and place the hold. Right at that moment in time, you have invoked the mail item to user, and now that prevents you from having to jump through all the hoops that our poor books by mail staff all these years have had to do of modifying the hold so that it could be mailed, because from the get-go, we have said to Symphony, we're mailing the item, we're invoking the mail service policy. And what Symphony does immediately behind the scenes is says, okay, as soon as an item gets selected to fill that hold, I am going to look and see who owns the item. And for every library, there is now a mailing center library established, and it is going to look at that and say, that is who is going to mail the item to the user. So that's how a hold gets placed by either a patron or staff. How do you trap the hold? Well, very similar to the way you currently would. Currently, the ways that you would trap a hold is, first of all, you would have gone and gotten your book drop. Your patrons would have come in with their armful of books and dumped them on the circulation desk, and you would have just opened the check-in wizard, because at that point, your goal is to just check those items in. You have no way of knowing then if some of them are going to go into transit to go back to other libraries because they belong to them, or if some of them are going to fill holds, or if some of them just belong to you and they're going to go onto the reshelving cart to be put back. So you start off with check-in. Some of those items then, as you're checking them in the current method and in the new method, are going to be available to fill a hold, and they're going to print out a slip for you. At that point, in the past, you would have set those aside, and later you would have gone into holds and trap hold, and you would have trapped that hold so that you could then process it for your user. Um, and the other method that you would have used to trap a hold is when you had opened your on-shelf items with holds wizard, where your pull list comes from. You would have gone to your shelves and pulled those items on your pull list. And once you got back to your desk, you would have highlighted an item and used the trap hold for selected copy to trap the hold. Moving forward, we're still doing those same things for those same reasons, but we are adding in another wizard that, if you've been with us long enough, when we went live in 2013, we had a wizard called Check Item Status that did things at the time we did not want it to do. By that, I mean that it could trap holds and it could place items in transit. we didn't want it to do that because when we were using it, we weren't using it to do that. We were just using it to look up an item, and boy, did it not help us at that point. So we just removed it from everybody's toolbar. But now we are putting it back, and we're putting it back in a different location. You'll see where it is. But now we do want it to do exactly what it is designed for. So under our new methods, first of all, again, you've opened the on-shelf items with Hold Wizard. You've done your pull list. You've gone and pulled the items, come back, and you've got the item in your hand. You highlight it. You use the trap hold for selected copy. That works just fine because when you do that trap hold for selected copy, it will tell you if it has a mailing center library. And you're going to see where that comes into play in some of the following slides. You can also, if you're checking in a hold from transit, you can use that check item status wizard because again, you want to see if it has a mailing center library. So with either the trap hold for selected copy from the on-shelf items with hold wizard or from the check item status wizard, both of those wizards with one scan are going to tell you if the hold is to be mailed or not. But you will still have those instances where you are checking items in from your book drop or from a counter return, just using the regular check-in item. So what we're suggesting now is when you've used check-in and it has printed out a hold slip for you, set those items aside, and before you do anything with them, after you've finished checking in the rest of your items, open the check item status wizard and recheck those items so that you can see if they are going onto a hold shelf or if they need to be mailed. And you'll see that in these screenshots to follow. So where is this magical new check item status wizard? It is down under the holds group of wizards. Again, when we first went live, it was up under common tasks, and we've purposely, now that we've brought it back, we've purposely put it with the holds because that's when you want to use it. When you're trying to determine if an item that you already know is on hold is going to be mailed or going onto the hold shelf. So that's why we've purposely put it under the under the holds check item status. So what would the steps look like if you started with check-in? Again, this is the scenario. You've brought items in from the book drop. Patrons have returned items. So you just did a regular check-in, but aha, this one is available to fill a hold, and it's gone ahead and printed out a receipt for you. Now I'm going to set that aside and then open up my check item status wizard. I'm going to check it again, and I'm going to look for this line right here, mailing center library. If that line is there and has a library next to it, the item to be that is available to fill the hold needs to be mailed. It's not going onto a hold shelf. Someone is going to mail it. Either you may be the mailing center library, in which case you all are given the opportunity right then to make the item available for the hold, and it goes into shipping and it's ready to be set aside and be mailed. If you are a buddy library, which everybody except Lake Wales and Lakeland for the next week or so will be while we get postage on the new postage meters. So if you are a buddy library, it's going to tell you who your mailing center library is, and you'll be ready to send it to them. So what I'm asking you to do is you've checked it in, it printed out the receipt, you've used check item status to see is it in fact going on a hold shelf or does it need to be mailed. When you see that it needs to be mailed and you are a buddy library and you're going to send it to your mailing center library for them to mail it for you, please write on the top of that receipt MAIL. Put that item with the receipt into a red B-mail bag and use one of the regular transit tags, delivery tags that you would for a green bag or an orange bag to your mailing center library. So in our screenshot, the mailing center library is Bartow. If I were Mulberry, for instance, whose mailing center library is Bartow, when I got that receipt, I would write MAIL at the top of it, put it into a red bag, put a Bartow tag on it, and it would go on its merry way to Bartow. If Bartow was the one who had checked this item in. And again, they too need to know, is it going on the Bartow hold shelf or am I mailing it for someone? So they also are going to need to use that check item status. They find out that it's going to be mailed. They can go ahead from that screen and make the item available to fill the hold. It would then place it in shipping, and they are trapping the hold for it at that point. Or they could still set it aside and trap the hold with the regular trap hold wizard. Either way works. So what if you're doing your pull list? You've started with the on-shelf items with hold wizard. You've got your pull list. You've gone out. Now you will notice that the information that you get on the on-shelf items with hold wizard doesn't say anything about mailing or shipping or mailing libraries or anything like that. It's just the same information that you've always seen, what your call number is, the title, the author, the item ID, the item type, what its current location is, when the hold was placed, who the pickup library is. And again, in this scenario, in our new scenario, remember that when you place that hold, and you checked the box for mail item to user, there was a grayed out pickup library. That's the one that's going to show up in this on-shelf items with hold wizard. It's not able to show you the mailing status. So this is great to know what items are on the shelf that you need to go pull, and you go pull them. But the great thing about the on shelf items with Hold Wizard and the mailing happens when you've pulled those items and then you use the trap hold for selected copy. So you've pulled the item, it's highlighted on your list. You select trap hold for selected copy, and then it shows you if there's a mailing center library. In my testing of this in the training database, it typically only showed mailing center library when there was a value to be placed in there. So mailing center library Bartow. I do not remember seeing mailing center library in a blank, but if you saw that, that would mean that it does not have a mailing center library. There's always going to be a value there if it is to be mailed. So if it is to just go to a regular hold shelf, it's either not going to have that line at all, or it's going to say mailing center, it's going to have mailing center library and a blank if it's supposed to go on a hold shelf. Otherwise, it's always going to say mailing center library and tell you exactly who it has assigned as the mailing center library, and it's doing that based on behind the scenes who has been certified as the mailing center library for the item owning location. So again, these are your items because it's your pull list that you're doing. So it's going to show who your mailing center library is. Now, after we get the postage on the 4 new postage meters, we are going to revert to the buddy libraries that we previously had all agreed upon, a buddy library and a mailing library. However, in this short term for this week, probably a little bit of next week, everybody's mailing center library is either Lakeland or Lake Wales because they are the only two that have postage on their postage meters. So it's going to tell you exactly who you need to send it to. You don't have to worry about remembering who you're assigned to. System's going to do all of that for you. And so again, here you are in your on-shelf items with hold wizard. You've pulled the item, you've trapped the hold for the selected copy. It has told you who the mailing center library is. You go ahead and trap the hold by clicking on Make Hold Available. And if you are not the mailing library, if you are a buddy library, it's going to print out the slip. You're going to write at the top of the slip MAIL, put it into a red bag, find, in this case, a Bartow tag to go into that red bag and send it off to Bartow. If you are the mailing library, it's going to print the hold slip for you. And when we do our mailing library training, you'll see why that's important because you're going to want to know who the hold is for so that you can do some things before you are ready to mail. So either way, you get your slip. What if you start with a check item status? If you start with the check item status, you're immediately going to see if in fact it has a mailing center library. So again, I had this item, I used my check item status. it tells me that it is indeed an item to fill a hold. The mailing center library is Bartow, and I can immediately click on Make Hold Available. When I do, it immediately, if I am the mailing library, and in this scenario, I was signed in as Bartow, so it immediately routed it to in shipping. It would print out the slip for me so that I would have the hold slip and I'd know what patron that was for. The reason that becomes important for a mailing library is frequently there's more than one item going to a patron, and you want to be able to group them together so that you've put three items into one bag instead of one item and then the next item and then the next item, and they're all three done separately. So if you start with check item status, it's going to show you who the mailing center library is, if there is one. If it does not say anything about a mailing center library or mailing center library is blank, then the hold just goes to the hold shelf. So what is the timeline for the changes? We're already well into it. I changed over all of the patron setups yesterday. So starting yesterday afternoon, patrons who were placing holds were invoking the mail service policy of books by mail and not the bricks and mortar pickup location. Today was the last drop-off day at the B-Mail Central office. This afternoon, I will be running a report that will change all of the items that have a pickup location of B-Mail over to West B-Mail. And the kind folks at the West B-Mail office are going to take care of those for us in the transition period. And then you will already start, because I know several libraries have already reached out to me that they've had some. When you're doing your check-ins that we've just gone over, you're going to go ahead and start to see some that have a mailing center library. And you're going to go ahead and follow these directions to get it to the right mailing center library. We have done web page and social media notifications to the patrons about the changes. Earlier today, I sent out PDF files of this slideshow along with some screenshot pages of how to handle items if you are a mailing library and you're checking them in to fill a hold, or if you're a buddy library. And then my mailing libraries will be doing training on how to take it from there. So I will be happy to try to answer any questions that you have, understanding that this is a work in progress and we're going to have a few hiccups for the next week or so as we get everything in place. Um, Ultimately, I really think this is going to be a faster method of getting items out to patrons because I think that many of the items are going to be owned by the 6 mailing libraries, so they'll be doing their pull list and going through this process and setting them aside in shipping and mailing them out. And if you're a buddy library, we purposely picked your mailing library to be the next one down the road for you on the delivery stops. So again, things could conceivably go out the same day or the next day, which will be faster or at least with the same speed that they currently are. Now, again, in this transition period, we're going to have some hiccups. We're going to have some things that go to the wrong library. Not at all a big deal. There are ways that you can override and manipulate them if you need to, but the easiest thing in most cases is just going to be say, oops, and put it back into the red bag and put the correct tag on it and send it to where the system is telling you it needs to go. Any questions that I can answer? If you have questions later, you are welcome to email me or give me a call. Please do try to share this information with others in your library if they haven't had a chance to sit in on the training yet. We're doing training again tomorrow at 10 and 2, and then Thursday at 2 and Friday at 10. And then we will be putting a recording of this with all its warts and stops and starts and stutters onto the Niche Academy where you can reference it if you forgot what something was. And you'll also have the PDF file of the slides.